Okay, welcome everybody to today's newspaper article. We're going to do something political today. Now, I'm an apolitical person. There was an election here just a few days ago, and I did not vote for anybody. I want to make that very clear. I don't vote because I don't like it when people try to use somebody's death to make me do something. It's a form of manipulation, and very often people say, your ancestors, Dave, they gave up their lives, they laid down their lives so that I can tick an idiot's name on a piece of paper. And I don't think that's true. I think it's a blatant manipulation, and any time somebody says, I don't know, if you don't do this, Dave, a load of grannies will die, I know that it's a trick, and to be completely frank, it's the oldest trick in the book. But we shall do politics simply for grammatical reasons. Let's look at the grammar and vocabulary in this particular article. So Lauren Boebert, that's a Republican representative, she's a Republican politician, she blames the COVID vaccine for Joe Biden's health. I don't know if any of you have seen Joe Biden recently, but he seems to be having a few problems. He mixes up a lot of names. He mixed up Zelensky and Putin. They're very similar, obviously, and so it's very easy to mix those two up. And he also called his own vice president, who is a woman, and I'm sorry I don't know her name, I'm not very into politics. He called her Vice President Trump. And so he seems to be having a few cognitive problems. Representative Lauren Boebert suggested that the COVID-19 vaccine could be to blame for President Joe Biden's health concerns. Now, I want you to notice that we use to blame, a 2 plus infinitive, like an adjective very, very often. It means responsible, guilty of something. So the COVID-19 could be responsible for President Joe Biden's health concerns. Biden's performance in the presidential debate against former President Donald Trump on June 27th sparked, which means caused, precipitated. When something sparks concerns, it causes concerns. You can also spark panic or something like that, and it means causes panic. But it sparked renewed concerns about his age. Biden, 81, and I want to point out that Trump's about 78, isn't he? So they're both dinosaurs. They're both extremely old to be doing an important job, such as president. Biden, 81, sounded hoarse. Now, if you have a hoarse voice, it means you talk like this. Yeah, and if you watch, please go and Google, go and look on YouTube for Biden's speech where he messes up Zelensky's name, and you will hear that he sounds extremely hoarse. He speaks like this, and he certainly doesn't sound like a person who has sharp cognitive skills. He stumbled through some answers. So when you stumble, usually this is a way of walking, and if you stumble, you're almost falling over. Yeah, in fact, to stumble means to fall over. It's like to trip over. When you stumble, you have problems and you lose your balance for a few seconds. And of course, he stumbled through some answers because he wasn't finding it very easy to answer the questions. Perhaps his mental skills are not sharp enough. Sparking panic. There we go. We've had sparked concerns and now we've got sparking panic. Probably better to use a different word in the same sentence because there are other words like precipitate, which you could use. But they've decided to use the word spark and spark again. It shows a lack of vocabulary, to be honest, but a lot of these journalists do suffer from poor writing skills. So sparking panic from Democrats, comma, and then we've got a lovely relative clause here, many of whom. And I want you to remember that you can often do this, much of which, many of whom. You can do it with these determiners, neither of whom, both of whom. Yeah, and so very often relative clauses can actually start with a determiner. They can also start with prepositions, like of which, or for whom, by whom. But very often they start with determiners. Many of whom are calling for him to withdraw from the race. Now, when you call for something, you demand that it be done because it needs to be done. Yeah, and so many Democrats now are calling for Biden to withdraw from the race, to withdraw from the election, to quit. As polls show, Trump leading in several swing states. Now, a swing state, we use a similar expression in the UK. We talk about swing constituencies, and these are places where well, they're states in America where sometimes they choose Republican and sometimes they choose Democrat. And so they're very easily won by one or the other side because they're more or less 50-50, basically. So a swing state is more or less 50-50 Republican-Democrat. Some states are like 80% Republican or 80% Democrat, and that means that they're not swing states because they're very likely to be Republican or Democrat the next election and the next election because so many people support that party. Okay, so that's what a swing state is. It's where it's more or less 50-50. Biden's campaign, however, has said he simply had a cold the night of the debate. Has he had a COVID test? Hey, has he had a COVID test? Somebody needs to give him a COVID test. Downplaying concerns. Now, this is a really good word, downplaying. You can also say playing down. You can make it a phrasal verb like that with play down. To downplay is the same as to play something down. And when you downplay concerns, you say, they're not as important as you think they are. Yeah. And so these concerns that the President of the United States might have Parkinson's disease or might have dementia, yeah, or certainly has declined in his cognitive abilities, they're downplaying these concerns. They're saying, it doesn't matter if the president can't remember who Zelensky and Putin is and who Donald Trump is. It doesn't matter. Okay, cognitive health experts have also said that his debate performance is not necessarily indicative of cognitive decline, yeah? So go and watch that video, guys, where he talks about Zelensky and calls him Putin and then calls his own vice president, who's a woman, he calls her Vice President Trump, and ask yourself if it's a sign, if it's indicative of cognitive decline. Noting there could be a number of other explanations, yeah, for the fact that he's mixing up Zelensky and Putin, for example. Boebert, a Colorado Republican, and that's an A positive, yeah, renaming Boebert a Colorado Republican, weighed in on, look at that lovely phrasal verb, she weighed in on his health in a post to X, formerly Twitter, on Thursday. So when you weigh in on something, you give your opinion on some kind of controversial topic. It's usually a controversial topic that you weigh in on. And she weighed in on the president's health. Yeah, and what did she write? She wrote, "I wonder what could have caused Joe Biden's rapid physical and cognitive decline." She wrote alongside 4 photographs of Biden receiving the COVID-19 vaccination and booster shots. So here is her post on Twitter or X or whatever the hell you want to call it. 4 photos of the president getting a vaccine and asking, I wonder what could have caused, look at that nice perfect modal there, could have caused Joe Biden's rapid physical and cognitive decline. Now, she seems to perhaps have forgotten that Donald Trump also got the vaccine, and so perhaps she's forgotten that, but anyway, she's suggesting that this is what has caused his cognitive decline. There has not been substantial evidence to back up claims. Look, you back up claims, you back up, so there's not been evidence to back up this idea, this theory. Yeah, there has not been substantial evidence to back up, to support claims that the COVID-19 vaccine leads to cognitive decline. Yeah, there are other side effects that it has been linked to, but not yet cognitive decline, a fact that many of Boebert's critics noted in responding to her post. Public health experts maintain that the vaccine is safe and effective. Yeah, we always get that sound bite, don't we? Whenever we talk about vaccines, we all say safe and effective. The vaccine is safe and effective in preventing the spread of the virus. However, a New England Journal of Medicine study published in February found that people infected with the virus may show signs of cognitive decline. Okay, so it's not the vaccine, according to this study, or this study makes it more likely that it's not the vaccine, it's COVID. It's the virus that has caused Joe Biden's cognitive decline. But noted more research needs to be done. Okay? Boebert faced a wave of backlash. I don't usually hear it called a wave of backlash, but you can imagine it means a flood, a number of criticisms, a wave of backlash. A backlash is always some kind of reaction critical reaction to something you have said or something you have done. And so Boebert, this Republican representative, she faced a wave of backlash over her post. You're vile. Vile means disgusting. Yeah, you are vile. You are disgusting. And I suppose a lot of politicians are vile and disgusting, no doubt about that. Go tend to your grandchild, attorney Bradley P. Moss wrote. Anoop Jain, and now we have an A positive, a professor of environmental health at Boston University, responded, this is the insanity that public health is up against. Yeah, if you are up against something, you are fighting it in some kind of way. Boebert doesn't actually believe this. Okay, so Anoop Jain thinks that Boebert is lying when she says, oh, perhaps it's the COVID vaccine. Boebert doesn't actually believe this. She's just trolling. Well, perhaps Anoop is correct. I don't know. I really don't know Boebert. I have no idea if she's a good or a bad politician. Generally speaking, I tend to put them all in the bad category simply because I have spent my whole life listening to them and I've come to that conclusion. And yet the damage has been done. She is helping eradicate. What's she eradicating? She's eradicating faith in science. Now, usually you see faith and science juxtaposed. Yeah, you usually see them contrasted with each other, you know, because faith is connected to religion and science doesn't require faith. It doesn't require any faith at all, science. Science demonstrates, whereas religion, if you're interested in religion, then you believe, you have faith that what you think is true. Whereas in science, you look at the demonstration, and science always demonstrates you do not need faith in any kind of science. And so when people say trust the science, they're not talking about science, they're talking about dogma. They're talking about blindly following dogma. And anyway, we're eradicating that blind following of dogma and the importance of vaccines. Shameful behaviour from an elected official. Okay, what else have people been saying? This tweet is like the Rosetta Stone of wingnuts. Now, I imagine he means crazy people by wingnuts, and so this is like the Rosetta Stone of wingnuts. Quite a strange simile, in my opinion. Wrote John Marshall, founder and editor-in-chief, okay, so this is somebody who knows about language, editor-in-chief of Talking Points Memo. He then goes on to say, or like if we sent out another deep space probe and want, yes, that's a mistake, a single artifact for aliens to understand our civilization in its death spiral, comma needed there, this would be it. So let me rewrite that sentence from the editor-in-chief because it's wrong. We need to say, or as if we had sent out another deep space probe and wanted a single artifact for aliens to understand our civilization in its death spiral, comma, this would be it. Yeah, in fact, I'll change it to sent, don't have had sent. As if we sent out another deep space probe and wanted, we need both of those verbs in past simple for it to make any sense. So if we sent out another space probe and wanted a single artifact for aliens to understand our civilization in its death spiral, then this would be it. Yeah, and you need that comma there to make it clear that this is the main clause and we started with the subordinate clause. Okay, former President Donald Trump also received the COVID-19 vaccine. His administration was in part responsible for its quick rollout. Yeah, a rollout is a launch of something. And so the rollout of the vaccines was the launch of the vaccines. And it was known as Operation Warp Speed. Now, Operation Warp Speed is from a science fiction TV show called Star Trek. And so they have given this vaccine rollout a science fiction name. I'm not sure why it's got a science fiction name, but the vaccine rollout had a science fiction name. Well worth thinking about. He has at times found himself at odds with, and that means against in some kind of way. He has at times found himself against conservative voters, yeah, at odds with conservative voters. And then we've got a lovely relative clause starting with a determiner again, many of whom have embraced anti-vaccine stances over his support for the vaccination and rarely touts the accomplishment which has received bipartisan praise. So to tout an accomplishment means to boast about an accomplishment. He rarely boasts about Operation Warp Speed, and this is because many of his voters, for some strange reason, have an anti-vaccine stance, and so he tends to keep quiet about the fact that he did actually roll out the vaccines in Operation Warp Speed. Yeah, that's a something from Star Trek, the science fiction TV show. Okay, thanks for listening. I'll see you all in the next class.